Genesis 18. Later the Lord again appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. At that time Abraham was sitting at the door of his tent. It was during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When Abraham saw them, he ran from his tent to meet them. He bowed face down on the ground before them. Abraham said, "Sir, if you think well of me, please stay a while with me, your servant. I will bring some water so all of you can wash your feet. You may rest under the tree. I will get some bread for you so you can regain your strength. Then you may continue your journey." The 3 men said, "That is fine. Do as you said." Abraham hurried to the tent where Sarah was. He said to her, "Hurry, prepare 20 quarts of fine flour and make it into loaves of bread." Then Abraham ran to his cattle. He took one of his best calves and gave it to a servant. The servant hurried to kill the calf and to prepare it for food. Abraham gave the 3 men the calf that had been cooked. He also gave them milk curds and milk. While the 3 men ate, he stood under the tree near them. The men asked Abraham, "Where is your wife Sarah?" "There in the tent," said Abraham. Then the Lord said, "I will certainly return to you about this time a year from now. At that time your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were very old. Sarah was past the age when women normally have children. So she laughed to herself, "My husband and I are too old to have a baby." Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, 'I am too old to have a baby'? Is anything too hard for the Lord? No, I will return to you at the right time a year from now, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." Then the men got up to leave and started out towards Sodom. Abraham walked along with them a short way to send them on their way. The Lord said, "Should I tell Abraham what I am going to do now? Abraham's children will certainly become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. I have chosen him so he would command his children and his descendants to live the way the Lord wants them to. I did this so they would live right and be fair. Then I, the Lord, will give Abraham what I promised him." Then the Lord said, "I have heard many things against the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. They are very evil. So I will go down and see if they are as bad as I have heard." So the men turned and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood there before the Lord. Then Abraham approached the Lord. Abraham asked, "Lord, do you plan to destroy the good persons along with the evil persons? What if there are 50 good people in that city? Will you still destroy it? Surely you will save the city for the 50 good people living there. Surely you will not destroy the good people along with the evil people. Then the good people and the evil people would be treated the same. You are the judge of all the earth. Won't you do what is right?" Then the Lord said, "If I find 50 good people in the city of Sodom, I will save the whole city because of them." Then Abraham said, "I am only dust and ashes, yet I have been brave to speak to the Lord. What if there are only 45 good people in the city? Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 5 good people?" The Lord said, "If I find 45 good people there, I will not destroy the city." Again Abraham said to the Lord, "If you find only 40 good people, will you destroy the city?" The Lord said, "If I find 40 good people, I will not destroy the city." Then Abraham said, "Lord, please don't be angry with me. Let me ask you this. If you find only 30 good people in the city, will you destroy it?" The Lord said, "If I find 30 good people there, I will not destroy the city." Then Abraham said, "I have been brave to speak to the Lord. But what if there are 20 good people in the city?" The Lord answered, "If I find 20 good people there, I will not destroy the city." Then Abraham said, Lord, please don't be angry with me. Let me bother you this one last time. What if you find 10 good people there? The Lord said, If I find 10 good people there, I will not destroy it. When the Lord finished speaking to Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Matthew chapter 17. 6 days later, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, up on a high mountain. They were all alone there. While they watched, Jesus was changed. His face became bright like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. Then 2 men were there, talking with him. The men were Moses and Elijah. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you want, I will put 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While Peter was talking, a bright cloud covered them. A voice came from the cloud. The voice said, This is my son, and I love him. I am very pleased with him. Obey him. The followers with Jesus heard the voice. They were so frightened that they fell to the ground. But Jesus went to them and touched them. He said, Stand up. Don't be afraid. When the followers looked up, they saw Jesus was now alone. When Jesus and the followers were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, Don't tell anyone about the things you saw on the mountain. Wait until the Son of Man has been raised from death. Then you may tell. The followers asked Jesus, Why do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first, before the Christ comes? Jesus answered, They are right to say that Elijah is coming, and it is true that Elijah will make everything the way it should be. But I tell you, Elijah has already come. People did not know who he was. They did to him everything they wanted to do. It will be the same with the Son of Man. Those same people will make the Son of Man suffer. Then the followers understood that Jesus was talking about John the Baptist. Jesus and his followers went back to the crowd. A man came to Jesus and bowed before him. The man said, Lord, please help my son. He has epilepsy and is suffering very much. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your followers, but they could not cure him. Jesus answered, You people have no faith. Your lives are all wrong. How long must I stay with you? How long must I continue to be patient with you? Bring the boy here. Jesus gave a strong command to the demon inside the boy. Then the demon came out, and the boy was healed. The followers came to Jesus when he was alone. They said, Why couldn't we force the demon out? Jesus answered, You were not able to drive out the demon because your faith is too small. I tell you the truth, if your faith is as big as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and the mountain will move. All things will be possible for you. That kind of spirit comes out only if you use prayer and give up eating. Later, the followers met together in Galilee. Jesus said to them, The Son of Man will be given into the control of some men. They will kill him, but on the 3rd day he will be raised from death. And the followers were filled with sadness. Jesus and his followers went to Capernaum. There some men came to Peter. They were the men who collect the temple tax. They asked, Does your teacher pay the temple tax? Peter answered, Yes, Jesus pays the tax. Peter went to the house where Jesus was. Before Peter could speak, Jesus said to him, The kings on the earth collect different kinds of taxes, but who are the people who pay the taxes? Are they the king's children? Or do others pay the taxes? What do you think? Peter answered, Other people pay the taxes. Jesus said to Peter, Then the children of the king don't have to pay taxes. But we don't want to make these tax collectors angry, so go to the lake and fish. After you catch the first fish, open its mouth. Inside its mouth you will find a coin. Take that coin and give it to the tax collectors. That will pay the tax for you and me. Nehemiah chapter 7. After the wall had been rebuilt, I had set the doors in place. Then the gatekeepers, singers, and Levites were chosen. I put my brother Hananiah along with Hananiah in charge of Jerusalem. Hananiah was commander of the palace. He was honest, and he feared God more than most men. I said to them, "The gates of Jerusalem should not be open until the sun is hot. While the gatekeepers are still on duty, have them shut and bolt the doors. Appoint people to live in Jerusalem as guards. Put some at guard posts and some near their own houses." The city was large and full of room, but there were few people in it, and the houses had not yet been rebuilt. So my God caused me to gather the people. I gathered the important men, the leaders, and the common people. This was so I could register them by families. I found the family history of those who had returned first. This is what I found written there. These are the people of the area who returned from captivity. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had taken them captive. Now they returned to Jerusalem and Judah. Each one went back to his own town. These people returned with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Ramiah, Nahamiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Bishpereth, Bigvai, Nehum, and Baanah. These are the men from Israel, the descendants of Parosh, 2,172, the descendants of Shephatai, 372, the descendants of Ara, 652, the descendants of Pahath, Moab, through the family of Jeshua and Job, 2,818. The descendants of Elam, 1,254. The descendants of Zatu, 845. The descendants of Zakkai, 760. The descendants of Benui, 648. The descendants of Bebai, 628. The descendants of Azgad, 2,322. The descendants of Adoniakim, 667. The descendants of Bigvai, 2,067. The descendants of Adin, 655. The descendants of Ater through Hezekiah, 98. The descendants of Hashum, 328. The descendants of Bezai, 324. The descendants of Hariph, 112. The descendants of Gibeon, 95. These are the men from the towns of Bethlehem and Netophah, 188. The men of Anathoth, 128. The men of Beth Azameth, 42. The men of Kiriath Jearim, Kephirah and Beroth, 743. The men from Ramah and Geba, 621. The men from Michmash, 122. The men from Bethel and Ai, 123. The men from the other Nebo, 52. The men from the other Elam, 1,254. The men from Harim, 320. The men from Jericho, 345. The men from Lod, Hadid, and Ono, 721. The men from Sanaa, 3,930. These are the priests, the descendants of Jedediah, through the family of Jeshua, 973. The descendants of Immer, 1,052. The descendants of Pashur, 1,247. The descendants of Harim, 1,017. These are the Levites, the descendants of Jeshua through Kadmiel, through the family of Hodaviah, 74. These are the singers, the descendants of Asaph, 148. These are the gatekeepers, the descendants of Shallum, Ater, Talmon, Akub, Hatita, and Shobai, 138. These are the temple servants, the descendants of Ziha, Haspua, Tabath, Keros, Sia, Padon, Lebana, Hagabah, Shalmai, Hanan, Gidel, Gara, Rea, Rezin, Nekoda, Gazam, Uzzah, Pasha, Bezai, Meonim, Nephasim, Bakbuk, Hakupa, Harhur, Baziluth, Meheda, Harsha, Barkos, Sisera, Tema, Nezai, and Hatifa. These are the descendants of the servants of Solomon, the descendants of Sotai, Sophereth, Perida, Jala, Darkon, Gidel, Shephatiah, Hatil, Pokereth, Hazabaim, and Amon. The temple servants and the descendants of the servants of Solomon totaled 392. Some people came to Jerusalem from the towns Tel Melah, Tel Harsha, Kerub, Adon, and Immer, but they could not prove that their families came from the family of Israel. Here are their names and their number. The descendants of Deliah, Tobiah, and Nekoda, 642. And these priests could not prove that their families came from Israel. The descendants of Hobiah, Hakkoz, and Barzillai. He had married the daughter of Barzillai from Gilead and was called by her family name. These people searched for their family records, but they could not find them. So they could not be priests because they were thought to be unclean. So the governor ordered them not to eat any of the food offered to God. First, a priest had to settle the matter by using the Urim and Thummim. The total number of those who returned was 42,360. This is not counting their 7,337 male and female servants. They also had 245 men and women singers with them. They had 736 horses, 245 mules, 435 camels, and 6,720 donkeys. Some of the family leaders gave to the work. The governor gave to the treasury about 19 pounds of gold. He also gave 50 bowls and 530 pieces of clothing for the priests. Some of the family leaders gave about 375 pounds of gold to the treasury for the work. They also gave about 2,660 pounds of silver. This is the total of what the other people gave: about 375 pounds of gold, about 2,250 pounds of silver, and 67 pieces of clothing for the priests. So these people all settled in their towns: the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers, the temple servants, and all the other people of Israel. By the 7th month, the Israelites were settled in their own towns. Acts 17. Paul and Silas traveled through Amphipolis and Apollonia and came to Thessalonica. In that city there was a Jewish synagogue. Paul went into the synagogue as he always did. On each Sabbath day for 3 weeks, Paul talked with the Jews about the scriptures. He explained and proved that the Christ must die and then rise from death. He said, "This Jesus I am telling you about is the Christ." Some of the Jews were convinced and joined Paul and Silas. Many of the Greeks who worshipped the true God and many of the important women joined them. But the Jews became jealous. They got some evil men from the marketplace, formed a mob, and started a riot. They ran to Jason's house, looking for Paul and Silas. The men wanted to bring Paul and Silas out to the people, but they did not find them, so they dragged Jason and some other believers to the leaders of the city. The people were yelling, "These men have made trouble everywhere in the world, and now they have come here too. Jason is keeping them in his house. All of them do things against the law of Caesar. They say that there is another king called Jesus." When the people and the leaders of the city heard these things, they became very upset. They made Jason and the others put up a sum of money. Then they let the believers go free. That same night, the believers sent Paul and Silas to Berea. There, Paul and Silas went to the Jewish synagogue. These Jews were better than the Jews in Thessalonica. They were eager to hear the things Paul and Silas said. These Jews in Berea studied the scriptures every day to find out if these things were true. So many of them believed. Many important Greek men and women also believed. But when the Jews in Thessalonica learned that Paul was preaching the word of God in Berea, they came there too. They upset the people and made trouble. So the believers quickly sent Paul away to the coast. But Silas and Timothy stayed in Berea. The men who took Paul went with him to Athens. Then they carried a message from Paul back to Silas and Timothy. It said, "Come to me as soon as you can." Paul was waiting for Silas and Timothy in Athens. He was troubled because he saw that the city was full of idols. In the synagogue, he talked with the Jews and the Greeks who worshipped the true God. He also talked every day with people in the marketplace. Some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers argued with him. Some of them said, "This man doesn't know what he's talking about. What is he trying to say?" Paul was telling them the good news of Jesus rising from death. They said, "He seems to be telling us about some other gods." They got Paul and took him to a meeting of the Areopagus. They said, "Please explain to us this new idea that you have been teaching. The things you are saying are new to us. We want to know what this teaching means." All the people of Athens and those from other countries always used their time talking about all the newest ideas. Then Paul stood before the meeting of the Areopagus. He said, "Men of Athens, I can see that you are very religious in all things. I was going through your city, and I saw the things you worship. I found an altar that had these words written on it: 'To a God who is not known.' You worship a God that you don't know. This is the God I am telling you about. He is the God who made the whole world and everything in it. He is the Lord of the land and the sky. He does not live in temples that men build. This God is the one who gives life, breath, and everything else to people. He does not need any help from them. He has everything he needs. God began by making one man. From him came all the different people who live everywhere in the world. He decided exactly when and where they must live. God wanted them to look for him and perhaps search all around for him and find him. But he is not far from any of us. By his power we live and move and exist. Some of your own poets have said, "For we are his children." We are God's children. So you must not think that God is like something that people imagine or make. He is not like gold, silver, or rock. In the past, people did not understand God, but God ignored this. But now, God tells everyone in the world to change his heart and life. God has decided on a day that he will judge all the world. He will be fair. He will use a man to do this. God chose that man long ago, and God has proved this to everyone by raising that man from death. When the people heard about Jesus being raised from death, some of them laughed. They said, "We will hear more about this from you later." So Paul went away from them. But some of the people believed Paul and joined him. One of those who believed was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, also a woman named Damaris, and some others believed.